Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. I have all the way from Lithuania, which is fresh early Monday morning. I think you said it's around 9:30, just after 9:30. I have Frank Sondors here. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's bright and early and just having my first cup of, so yeah.
Oh, I love it. And I've already been hitting you up on some of the glitches I've got with my system. So I'm pretty cool to chat to you because you are the CEO and co-founder of Salesforge.ai, which
Yep.
I love the name. And I am going to ask you a bit about how you came to that name, which was a company that you established just on 2.5 years ago. So what's that? Was that 2023 or 20 end of 22
23, yeah.
or 23? Yeah. Can't even get my
Yeah,
maths.
2023. Yeah, June 2023 is when we established. Prior to that, we were just, trying to, validate the idea, what we're building
Yeah.
actually makes sense. So back in those days, we actually were taking pre-orders, paid pre-orders actually, for the software before we even shipped a single line of code. So, yeah, those were some fun days for sure.
Yeah, cool. I love a bit of product market research. And
Mhm.
it's a platform that blends humans and AI agents to automate prospecting and book meetings. And you have seven products, but your pinnacle product and what you're best known for is Agent Frank. And I love that it obviously is your name as well. In the 2.5 years since you started the business, you're averaging 3 million in revenue, which is incredible, and you have 10,000 customers. Uh, I don't understand this, but you can talk all about this. The AI SDR that runs outreach end to end. I don't know what AI. I know what AI is, but the SDR, I'm sure I probably know the abbreviation, but can't think at the top of my head. But it's from finding prospects to scheduling. And when you
Mhm.
booked in for the pod, and I asked you what was one unique insight or lived experience when it comes to life leadership and or business, you said how to leverage AI agents within your business. I've been having a lot of conversations around AI agents of recent and the next iteration of what AI can do for you, what it can do for your business. It's no longer about generative AI. It's about what the agents can do and how you can set up the orchestra and become the conductor of that orchestra. Tell us everything, Frank.
So
I'm going
yeah,
to call you
so yeah,
George
back
then,
in
by the way, too, because I saw Orange and I'm like, yeah, anyway, sorry.
back in the days, we only built the first software, so that's Salesforce. So that's the product where the agent lives. So that's the product that executes campaigns. So meaning email campaigns. It executes also right now LinkedIn campaigns, meaning you can reach out to your prospects via two channels, and you can reach out what we call programmatically, whether you use the software yourself as a human, or you are letting the agent do all the legwork for you. And it reaches out for you literally autonomously. What does that mean? So that means you are outlining who is your ideal customer profile within the software. You can then source the leads against the ideal customer profile criteria. You naturally also have to outline what is your value prop, so why the heck you're reaching out essentially to people. Then Agent Frank will go and find the leads for you in one of our seven softwares, which is called LeadsForge, and it will find those leads in there, which is like a search engine, or like ChatGPT, which searches across a multitude of data vendors. And then it will craft a unique email to every single recipient. And the uniqueness comes from two data sets that we programmatically stitch together. One is what we know about you. So, right, your value prop, what is the pain that you're solving? What is the solution you've got on offer? What is the cost of inaction? So if you're gonna do nothing, or I mean, meaning the prospect is gonna do nothing about that particular problem that you're looking to solve, what was gonna happen then? And any sort of social proof point. So any sort of anything, like case studies, anything like that, right? That you can outline. So that's the one data set. We call that the seller data. And we match that seller data programmatically with what we call the buyer data. What do we know about each and every single recipient based on publicly available data? So we do web crawling. So we go and access the LinkedIn profile of yours. We go and access the website. We go and access other sources to try and build rich context about that individual. So then we stitch these two data sets together. We apply the AI on top of that, and then we can execute a unique email in any language, whether you want that to be in English, you want that to be in French, whatever the language is, and it executes three emails typically. Then on top of that, also we would send three unique DMs on LinkedIn as well. So we connect and send a couple of DMs there. And that's how, the experience would look like. And actually, when we're getting responses back from our prospects, then the agent engages literally within a couple minutes. So very, very fast. And that's very important from a conversion rate standpoint. And then it has a goal. So the typical sort of goals or conversions in sales is like booking a meeting. There has to be maybe a click out event. Maybe you're just trying to find the right person in the company for a specific thing. Maybe you're looking to drum up webinar signups, things like that. So yeah, it can be done fully end to end if you don't want to be in the loop. And so it will only stop if the agent doesn't know what to do. Or you could have it in a sort of a co-pilot mode where once the replies are coming in your primary inbox, then you will take over as a human. You typically do that because you don't have a lot of sort of maybe information that you can provide about your business, or then maybe there's a lot of custom work that you do, and then that's why it's better than the human takes over rather than the agent. So that's the where the agent lives within Salesforce. But yeah, over the last 2.5 years, we built these other softwares. So we built three softwares on what we call the email infrastructure front because we heavily specialize in email deliverability, making sure that emails get delivered in the primary inbox of the recipient. Um, and then we build what we call a warm-up solution to boost your deliverability. So it's a separate premium warm-up software. And then the final one is the Leads Forge. So Leads Forge is like ChatGPT or a search engine for leads. So the reason why we're building the way we're building is this concept is called the software compound model. That means you're building multiple pieces of software that you're selling to the same user and to the same buyer. And by doing so, you typically have, multiple subscriptions being bought. But think of this as sort of Apple versus Android experience. So essentially in Apple, you have these multiple products. They work nicely with each other. You have this Apple ID that allows you to sign into different softwares. We have Forge ID that allows you to sign into different softwares. Whereas the Android experience means today you're buying typically multiple pieces of software to generate that pipeline. You may be buying one piece of software for data, then another one for infrastructure, then for sending, and a bunch of other ones as well. So we want to provide essentially all your software requirements, let's call it that way, under one brand. And you will have what we call, the Apple experience when it comes to executing your sales campaign. So yeah.
Wow, it sounds incredible. So, what like in the most simplest terms, when you say end to end, it's almost like this one-stop shop. Is that right? Like how I'm understanding it? Like from you do all the research, you work with your client, understand, who their ICP is, understand who they're targeting, set up the leads, set up all the infrastructure, and it's efficient, it's optimized in terms of like you'll have a tech stack, but it's all in one, so that you don't have a myriad of all these different things you have to have passwords for and like jumping from here to here. Instead it's the one-stop shop, which makes life a lot easier for your customers. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. And you're only buying what you need, right? So if you don't need, say, the leads because you've got a bunch of leads in your CRM, then you don't need to buy the software that, is all about leads, right? So it's the idea is that it's a bit like Lego bricks. You're sort of, assembling your own stack as you
Yeah.
please, and then that helps you to make sure that you're not overpaying for the software. And so yeah, we also don't charge per seat as a sort of a pricing concept, but we charge for actual usage of the software. So it's also, fairly inexpensive to run it versus anything that's out there in the market.
And how did you come to this like idea, Frank? Like where did it start? Where did it stem from? Was it from your own experience of, like you being a customer, if you like, and going, this is too complicated. It should be way more easier than this. I'm sick of having all the different um subscriptions, if you like. I'll just use subscriptions for example. But like, do you know what I mean? Like, how did you come to this, coming up with this idea and doing the research around it?
Good question. So yeah, my background is in sales, so B2B software sales. So I've been doing sales for over a decade, so a very long time. And then in my last job, I had a sales team of about 50 reps. So very large team. And back in those days, which was sort of 3 years ago, it was growth at all costs. Essentially, you are tasked by your VCs to push growth at all costs, meaning you would just plow more human labor into the equation, because that was typically the main lever in target attainment that people sort of were looking at. So we were just hiring a bunch of people and we were trying to grow the pipeline revenue and everything, but that was not very sustainable. And I always thought to myself, why wouldn't there be a software stack that allows you to scale sales pipeline, meaning meetings, meaning demand for your business, but without this necessarily having all these humans in play? So that's where I thought to myself, damn, I have to build sort of this software experience. It's a stack, it's multiple pieces of software, so I can choose which ones I want to buy, which ones I don't want to buy. And because my back in my experience as a VP sales, I used to pay for like 10 different softwares to do sales. And I always thought to myself, that with each software, the pricing model is per seat based. That means if I had 50 reps, I would have to buy up to 50 licenses
Yeah.
in every single one of those softwares. And it did become very expensive. So you start getting this sort of very bloated sales stack. So I thought to myself, how can you sort of kill that bloat? So that's why we came up with the usage-based pricing. But ultimately today, I only have about 5 sales reps in my team, and they deliver more output today than back in those days with the team of 50. And that's because a lot of things have changed from a standpoint of suddenly we have new technology called the LLMs, right? So AI, or a lot more of it because AI exists for a long time. And back in those days, we used to be called just simply machine learning. We used to do just run a bunch of predictions. But today, you can generate copies. You can do a lot of other things. But today, essentially, with not just AI, but also with other technology improvements, you're able to suddenly increase massively output levels, so meaning pipeline generation without necessarily hiring people. So that's the business that we're in, and we're specifically addressing this financial metric called CAC, so called cost of customer acquisition. And in that particular bucket within P&L, you typically have a lot of labor and a lot of ad spend in there. So there's not much you can do about ad spend, right? Google, there's an auction that runs on Google and
Yeah.
Meta, etc. So you can't do much there. But what you can do is figure out how do I generate X output level, but with significantly fewer humans today. So you see a lot of these trends in the US in particular, in the Bay Area, where this is already happening. This is the norm. You have lean and mean teams. This is coming to Europe and the rest of the world slowly but surely as well. So yeah, the essentially the impetus for doing Salesforce came from my own experience, because I always was sort of frustrated that you had to hire more people to get to where you want to get. And I was like, why would you want to have all these people, especially in sales, where for every 10 salespeople that you hire, maybe one person is really natural at their job or really good at
Yeah.
their job. 2 to 3 people can be trained up to be somewhat as good as these, top 10%, so these A players. And then the 60% is what typically is called dead wood. These people should not be in sales for various different reasons. So essentially, you're always overpaying up to 60% in terms of labor to generate that pipeline to bring in the sales. And I always thought, for these 40% good people that you have in your team, how can you scale the output of the 40%? And so that's ultimately the sort of the vision and mission of where we are onto, helping companies to generate more pipeline, but with a lean and mean team. So yeah.
Yeah, I like it. What about like in terms of your 10,000 customers? Do you quite often get them coming to you with I hate sales, I hate lead gen, there's all like it's hard, there's a barrier, cold
Yeah.
emails, all that sort of stuff. Like is that generally the biggest I guess challenge for them that they come to you with, can you just take it off me? I want to understand, I want to be involved in it, but I don't want to have to do this because you called out a really interesting insight around not everyone's great at sales, right? Like in terms of
Yeah.
it's almost like a bit of a gift. And like I hate it when I'm getting hardcore sales sold to me, for example. I like it to be real and kind of like we're having right now. But there's also kind of for me, it's a fine art. I feel like it's almost like this fine art in terms of the ability to convert, but also be able to keep it real, have the conversation. What are quite often the things that come up as the challenges when you first meet your clients or your customers that they're really wanting to, I guess, resolve?
Good question. So you talked about art. So I would say, in the US, sales is typically treated as science, and in the rest of the world, it's treated as art, literally. So that means the way you approach sales, the way you think about sales, In the US, it's just a lot more systematic, and people believe in science, machine learning, and a lot more AI or maximum AI, and then very few humans. And then, yeah, anywhere, wherever else you go in the world, the art definitely comes into play. So on a monthly basis, we generate over 500 meetings for our business. So that means demos. So that means we touch 500 plus customers. And yes, we have typically conversations about their needs to generate demand for the business through an outbound motion, and that's typically emails and LinkedIn messages. And I would say people just need people simplistically just need meetings, and how they get them. There are typically three options in the market of how you can generate meetings. One is you can just literally hire people to do that for you, right? So you have employees, they're doing that for you, etc. Option two is you can hire an agency
Yeah.
to take all that load off you. And option then three is to hire an agent. So you have somewhat of a competence, but you don't want to do all the work because time is very valuable for you, right? So time is money. So we want rather the agent to do everything for you. So I would say if you're not maybe when you have competence issues, I mean, you don't know really what you're doing, then you definitely want to go down the agency route and down the agent route. The human route, meaning you do everything yourself, you learn everything about yourself, just takes quite a long time. It's not that simple just to run email campaigns at scale these days. It's literally as complex as running Google Ads campaigns. It's just that it's not as expensive when you fuck it up. So yeah, these are the typical three paths. So when we sit down with a user, because we're a software vendor, right? We're not an agency.
No.
We're just offering good software, right? So to execute your campaigns, and our job is just to advise which route to go with. So let's say if we believe that the customer is unlikely to succeed unless they would get an agency, then we would push down the agency path, and we do have these what we call Forge experts that essentially use our software for a long time, and so they know what they're doing. So we pass the essentially as an opportunity that client over to our agencies to work with potentially, because at the end of the day we want to make sure that these people that we talk to, they are successful,
Yeah.
right? They're actually generating results. And guess what? Actually, a lot of businesses don't see results when it comes to outreach. And there's some sort of basic issues that businesses have. Sometimes they just don't have a proper website even in the first place because imagine if I would reach out to you and I'll be like, hey, I have this great software that could solve your pain. And then you would check out my website. My website just is horrible. And so you would not perceive me being, credible or, not the person you want to do business with, just purely because of the website. You look at it, it's like very old school or etc. So there's some like basic things that businesses are missing. Sometimes you look at them, or they have literally no social presence. Maybe they don't have what's called product market fit, so very young businesses, or even though they may have product market fit, when you talk to them and ask them a simple question, hey, if you've sent out have you sent out even manually emails to some of your prospects, and were you able to generate replies and book meetings from that? And if the answer is no, they don't have really what's called product channel fit, and they think that it will be solved through using a software. So there are these sort of questions that we would typically ask during meetings to try and figure out, whether it's even worth for them to even start things. I think the good thing about doing outreach via email, LinkedIn, is that it's very cost effective. Sending emails essentially is the cheapest way to acquire customers if you do it well. It is the cheapest. I think the only dilemma is you need to have a big enough of a total addressable market to actually start scaling, etc. Right? But if you have a very small market, let's say you only have potentially 1,000 businesses that you can reach out to, you don't need to automate things, right? So you can reach out to people manually. But where the dilemma comes is typically I say you need to automate, you need to scale, you need to build systems when you have 3,000 or more potential businesses that you want to reach out to.
Yeah.
That's where it's important to be applying various systems. So yeah, these are the conversations, and there's a lot of different sort of challenges in there. But if I would just have to sum up maybe where people have to invest time, there's 4 pillars, what I typically say, of success in email. One is what we call the email infrastructure pillar. And that means you should never send emails from your primary domain because you're at risk of putting your domain reputation. Because every email that you send out is an unsolicited email, so people can report you as
Yeah.
spam, they can
Yeah.
blacklist you, etc. Right? So you want to set up these secondary domains. That's pillar one. Then pillar two is what we call the copy pillar, which means do not send templates to your prospects because if they're being marked as spam because done a bad job, Google does uses Gemini to associate spam reports with the content within the email. So you definitely don't want to be sending the same emails all the time. So there's a couple of ways to solve that. One is through AI. The second one is through a concept called a spin tags, where you're randomizing the content within the email. Pillar three is the leads. So if you're going to send emails to the right leads, right people, essentially, you are more likely naturally to see results. If you're going to
Yeah.
send emails to the wrong people, they will report you as spam, right? So just to give you an idea of why you should try and not send emails to the wrong people. And then the final one is what we call the execution or orchestration pillar. How do you actually send these emails? What's the pacing like between the first email that you send out and then the second email that you send out? And the things like warm up and things like
Yeah.
making sure you don't have HTML in your email, etc. So it's how you execute these campaigns. So I always typically say don't use Mailchimp to send out cold emails because Mailchimp is not designed for cold emails. Mailchimp is for newsletters, for example, right? So use the right software to send the emails because they specialize in that particular email flow. And that's it. So these are the four pillars, and these are typically the things that we talk about with our prospects.
It's fascinating because you've had such strong growth in 2.5 years. Has it been, talk us a little bit about how long you were in market research for, like to get to the point where you're like, okay, we've really got this, we've got a business, we've got a product here. And then I'd love to understand a little bit around test, learn, iterate, because as you know, like even from what you're talking about and the four pillars of success, so much of what we're talking about here is test and learn, right? Isn't it? Like when it comes to product market fit, emails, the sequence of emailing, what you're putting in the emails. How long were you in market research for with this business?
Good question. So we incorporated the company in June 2023, but I would say we started market research a few months prior. So I would say about 3 months of doing what we call proper research and proper validation of the problem. So even though I'm a domain expert in the field, and essentially I'm building the software for myself, you would want to try and validate whether what you're up to also resonates with other sales leaders, sales development reps. So these are the SDRs.
Mm,
That's the acronym. So SDR is sales development rep. Revenue operations managers, sales operations managers. Essentially your ideal customer profile, but they have different titles within the organization. So we would do like 40 semi-structured interviews with individuals in different geographies, different businesses, different sizes of businesses to understand whether there's a particular pattern or not, right? So that's another thing. So market research definitely is like essentially is talking to your customers prior to even you writing a single line of code. That's something that you want to do
yeah,
a lot, and a lot means I would typically say at least 50 plus proper conversations. So like I would say you spend 30 minutes roughly. Sorry, maybe not 30 minutes, but at least 15 to 30 minutes. That's a minimum that you spend to have a proper conversation about this problem that you're looking to solve and to try and see whether you're on the right track. Because if you realize that nobody resonates with what you're building, then don't build it.
yeah,
Essentially, you have to pivot.
yeah,
So that's one thing that we've done. Right? So speaking to really people, then we were naturally looking at the competition. So we're looking at what's happening in the space. And we have like 100 plus competitors, so like a gazillions of competitors, and it feels like they're all doing different things. So when there's like 100 plus competitors, you're like, damn, that's very fragmented as a market.
mm,
So this is what brought us to the idea, yeah, also the idea we need to consolidate the space. You can't have hundreds of competitors. It's just not, there's typically somebody needs to consolidate this whole thing, So we want to be on a journey to do that. We don't believe that the current incumbents in the space that make hundreds of millions of dollars are the right businesses because they optimize for bigger teams. We believe that any company that organizes for more headcount, meaning they charge per seat, so they expect
yeah.
companies to grow, and then they would charge them per seat, and that's how they make the money. We believe these are legacy companies. So they will die, they're like the dinosaurs. And the companies that would charge for true usage of the softwares are the ones that will become actually really big. So we're one of those softwares. So
Sorry,
you
are
analyze really
you,
the.
oh Frank, just sorry,
Uh,
just to interrupt you, but are you then, so
yeah.
you're reshaping, right? Like in terms of you're carving out, you talk about legacy models, you're reshaping. this industry, if you like, from 100 competitors, you're carving out a new niche that's the new frontier, if you like, is what you're talking about here, right?
Yes.
I
So
love
you
it.
need to find this what's in the market, right? Why, like, how would you be able to scale this? So the thing is that when you're building if you want to scale fast, so fast means, $3 million in annual
Yeah.
recurring revenue in less than 12 months. We are the fastest growing software in our segment. We don't know any other competitor that grew faster in the first year than we did. So, but to have any form of, scale, doesn't matter, 1 million, whatever that is number, doesn't matter. But you need to have a big problem, literally a big problem and a big market against that. So like, because otherwise you can't get to scale, right? So and the competitors like don't really matter. Like, you think of it this way, like if you're really solving the problem in a better way, better means 10x better. So somebody says, "Oh, Frank, I'm doing this significantly better than my competitors," and you're just doing it tiny, tiny, tiny bit better than they do. That doesn't really matter in the eyes of the customer. In the eyes of the customer, you want to be doing something 10x better. So, and 10x better could be simply you have a different pricing model to a competitor, and that makes your proposition 10x more superior. It's just by simply changing the pricing model. So we've seen these things definitely happening, but you need to figure out what is the different variables that you need to sort of, optimize to get to product market fit, right? To get from 0 to 1. Um, and and yeah, so but I typically say there's three things in play that need to happen for sure. One is user feedback. Two is markets. You analyze the market, you analyze competitors. You literally sign up to competitor softwares, the
Yeah.
demos, etc. You just hear the way they speak, etc. And the third one is what's called domain expertise. So you need to have somebody in your team that's either from the space or understands it very, very deep and has what's called unique insights about the space that nobody else would typically have. We're talking about top 1%, of individuals that have rich context on the space. So if you don't have anybody in your team that's able to do that, then you need to bring somebody in because otherwise you will fail. I typically see people failing. It's just highly unlikely that you would scale without having expertise in the space. There definitely are examples, and there's very successful companies that are not from the space, but it's just much, much harder because every time when you're looking to make a decision in your business, you would need to do research because you're not really sure what to do.
Yeah.
But if you have a domain expert on the team, you just move much faster because decision making takes, seconds and minutes instead of days and weeks, right? And that can cripple your business. So yeah, I would say these are the three things. If you just do these three things really well, then it's just harder to, it's impossible sort of to fail, I would say. Um, and then, so apart from research, you need to have also what's called the right team. And you typically say the market, so there's product market fit and right, and then there's a founder market fit.
Yeah.
So, right, there's a concept. So that means why are you the best, like top 1% team that I would give all my money to solve this big problem in this big market? Right? Why are you? And you'll have to be really honest with yourself. If you don't believe that you are the top 1% team to solve this, then you are unlikely to solve this and you won't really scale that fast, right? So like investors, think of it, in that way, very simplistically, right? If you are raising money, you don't have to these days because these days actually a lot of companies actually are bootstrapping very successfully. But if you are looking to raise money, like think from a standpoint, you're pitching this idea to somebody else, and they're looking at your team, and they need to have conviction that you are the team, you are the top 1% team to solve this.
Yeah.
So in our case, and I typically say, you have to keep it kind of super simple. So yeah, somebody in the team has to be like a domain expert, super, super valuable, or you have to bring in as an advisor or whatever. But in simple forms, you need to have two founders as to make it really big. One is what I call the A player on the sales side.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just to do what's called distribution and distribute the product, whether he's selling, marketing, whatever. And then the second person on the team has to be an A player builder, essentially. You are very good at shipping code. You ship it very fast. You can think of it like a Silicon Valley engineer. You are very good at what you do. So if you have this combination, an A player on the sales side or marketing/marketing side, and an A player on the engineering/product side, you are definitely going to make it because ultimately, these teams typically move very, very fast. They are obsessed about the problem that they're, working on. They typically work 7 days a week. They talk to their customers all the time. So these are the sort of the behaviors and the sort of the signals that you will see that this is a top 1% team. You can literally just open the calendar of these founders and ask them ask them what they're doing on a daily basis, and you show them, okay, I'm talking to a customer at 9, then I'm shipping product at 10, and you can see that there's such a
Yeah.
velocity, and that's what drives you, gets you to 0 to 1, and then beyond that as well.
Wow, it's a lot. It's a lot that you're talking about here, and you're so methodical in how you describe it all and what like what the top 1% looks like. Was there any moments in your own when you were building your own business that you were like, oh gosh, is this going to work? Is this actually going to succeed? Like, did you have any d doubtful moments at all?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. So in the first, I would say, few months after we launched, so we had four prepaid customers. So they literally bought the product before shipping a single line of code. Then we onboarded them onto the software, and then we acquired about 100 customers within 3 months after that. And it's a lot for most of the people, but in our eyes, we didn't see what's called the hockey stick growth that we're optimizing with, right? So hockey stick growth means,
Yeah.
you're flatlining for a bit, and then suddenly, bam, you saw there's this product market fit inflection moment, and then you start scaling, right? So we like, when are we going really, really up? Because it felt like, we're flatlining. We're gonna flatline, quite fast, and so that was definitely a thing that was happening, and then bam, hockey stick growth happened. So I'll explain, the story in the beginning. So in the first 3 months, so we shipped this first product called Salesforge, right? And so it's about sending great emails via AI. So back in those days was GPT-3, GPT-4, and we understood that so you can send great emails. So we didn't have the agent yet. But you can send great emails. But the problem was you needed these additional domains and email accounts, so you don't send from your primary business domain. And we were asking our customers, hey, please, can you set up these domains and an email accounts using GoDaddy, so like a domain registrar, and then
Yeah, yeah,
setting up
yeah.
via Google Workspace accounts? And many of them said, sure, I'll do that. But in reality, like, it took them days, weeks, or they couldn't do it or whatever. There's a bunch of different problems. And we knew that the infrastructure piece is blocking us to becoming really, really successful. So after sort of 3 months of post-launch of Salesforce, we understood that this is not going to go anywhere unless we're going to solve the infrastructure piece. So then we parked the development of Salesforce, and we started to work on a second product already, which is called Mailforge, Mailforge.ai. Mailforge.ai is one of the largest infrastructure products on the market right now. But it was one of the first ones back then, which essentially allows you to set up in 5 minutes domains and email accounts at any scale, depending on your market. You need more domains, right? If you have a bigger market, and plug it into any software, whether that was our software or competitor software. So with that second software, once we launched that, so we paused the development of Salesforce after 3 months. We worked on that software for about 2 to 3 months again, and then everything started to skyrocket. So really, if you have to say, majority of the bulk of the revenue that we generated in the first year was in the last, I would say, 3 to 6 months of the year, and that's how we got to 3 mil. So this is an example of where maybe sometimes you don't have to focus on your first and primary product. Maybe you have to literally park the first product that you were working on for a bit
Yeah,
and
and
work on it in a second product,
yeah.
right? And by having these two products together, right? The first product that sends emails and the second product which sets up the domains and email accounts, this combination allows you to hyperscale. And that was an example in our case. Whereas, I think the other sort of stories that you typically hear is like, oh, we pivoted, what we're doing in the first product. We never pivoted. We just built a second one, and that second one is what took us off. So this is
Yeah.
the software compound that I'm speaking about. So yeah.
But it comes back to active listening, doesn't it? Like you saw, like, okay, well, this is a blocker almost. Like if we're getting our clients to set up their own email infrastructure, there's a resistance towards it. If you don't have any clues on how to set up emails, or it's another task to add to what you're already building as a founder, it can just cause a block in terms of, and then like, and then it holds up what you've, like, a point, like when you've got a client coming on board, it holds everything up. So it's kind of, that's when you kind of start to see the different problems. And I think that's also, like, I love building out an ecosystem, building out an end-to-end model, right? Because the world is so silo disconnected, and you go into so many different businesses and you just see all the disconnections. And the only way to really, I guess, get optimal success, optimal results, optimal, growth in a business is to ensure that it is all interconnected. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's so important, and yet I think this is half the problem. We've got so much going on, and it's because we've got things here, we've got things here. It's like, how do you orchestrate it so that or how do you conduct it so that it is seamless, it is optimized, it is efficient, it's working for you versus against you, and then the resistance is eliminated. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of it's the world we're in, and I think that more and more solutions like yours is what is required in business in general, like across various different kind of, what am I trying to say here?
Industry, yeah.
Yeah, do you know, like, I just think this is where we're at, and I think that it's a simplification of it. Like, when I've started all my lead gen this year, I'm like, whoa, like I was just like, oh, this is a lot. This is a lot in terms of I've got so much else going on my plate, and I'm setting up this and I'm setting up that, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I can't, you can't keep track of it all. And I don't think you're meant to. I think that's where you bring the specialists in for that very reason, because you can't be amazing at everything. You've got to pick what your strengths are, know what your strengths are, master them, and then get the people that are the experts in what they do to then help you, and to then leverage it. And like you say, then 10x at 100, whatever it is. But that for me
Mm.
is a critical point in time that we're in. I think that the world is really, it's kind of like we need to just take stock and go, all right. Like, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's what it feels like to me right now.
Yeah, so I mean, you have to think about why did big companies like Apple and Google, etc., became so big? Is because they were building end-to-end solutions
Mm,
to the problems of the users. So in the case of Google, say Google, has built Gmail and then Drive, etc., right? So it's built
yeah,
all these complementary solutions to attract any business out there, and that's how they get really big. On the Apple's front, it's all about communication and workflows, and etc. And that's why I build this sort of Apple ecosystem. In our case, the ecosystem is all about sales and building
yeah, I love it.
pipelines. So that right? So like you have to build, yeah, you have to build essentially end-to-end experience. So today, for example, we have 7 softwares, and when we call that the V1 of the stack, and we will build what we call the V2 of the stack. That means we'll build more softwares because we believe there's still components that are missing to significantly improve the results. But again, we're not building these things into a current software, building it as a separate capability. And I guess the advantage there is that you can use this as a standalone software if you really want to. Let's say you are using a competitive software, but you really like one of my softwares, right, that I've built, and just plug it into competitive software. So that's the flexibility that we give. The disadvantage of that is definitely is that it feels that there's a lot going on. But I think it's just like the Apple ecosystem. They have a lot of products as well. But so you are a bit overwhelmed in the beginning, how many products there are, how many softwares there are in our case, right? So that's the kind of the downside in terms of the feedback we get. So that means, maybe for a simple, for a typical, user, for them, it will take a bit of time to learn, oh, okay, this software is for this, that software is for that, and then understanding how it all fits together. But that's why, proper onboarding, I think, within the product or offering actually an onboarding call is also important, right? So to make people used to it. Because I also believe that if you're going to build this end-to-end experience, it's a bit like Apple. So when you have suddenly multiple products that you're using from Apple, suddenly you feel like there's no way that you will leave the ecosystem, right? So you're
No,
becoming essentially it's a very sticky experience. And that's exactly what I'm building. I can build such an experience for our users that you'll be stupid to leave our ecosystem. Like really, how do you build that experience, right? So how do you make sure that you're providing everything that the user needs to be successful in generating meetings and everything? And then being able to plug it in and maybe unplug, some of the softwares, later on. So it feels, this is the most sort of seamless
that's
experience.
what to say, seamless.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, seamless is what you want to get to because the expectations of the users are massively increasing over time. And that's because of the companies like Amazon, Apple, and other ones that are providing such a stellar experience. So the users expect everything to be done fast and really good and everything to be
Simple.
super seamlessly integrated. Yes, yes. And I think it is possible with with LLMs and automation technologies, etc. And then, yeah, I mean, one of the things, that I think can definitely supercharge your business today is the agent stuff that we haven't discussed. But I mean, I'm a big believer that um, as we're progressing right now and into the future in 2026, we're going to see more and more teams working with AI agents in
Yeah.
tandem in one environment, right? So in our case, that's Salesforce, right? So you can set up your own campaigns, but at the same time, you can also set up the agent, and in tandem, you can be running campaigns. And I believe it's the same thing's going to happen in finance and other spaces where agents are coming in. And the reason why that's happening is because there are various advantages of having humans in the team, and there's also various advantages of having agents in the team.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's either or
No,
when it comes to running a business. It is the blend.
it's a
And
hybrid.
to yeah, yeah, yeah. So you need to learn how to set this all up. So typically I say when you have a business problem today, that could be any problem, right? Sales or whatever that is. Think of getting what I call an off-the-shelf AI agent solution and plug that into your business because you'll see value very fast. If that is not available in the market or you're not, aware of any, then try and set up what I call custom agent workflows or solutions. And that can be done through an automation software like N8N or Make.com or even Zapier. So essentially, you imagine if your business would run on sort of autopilot or even like, Copilot mode, where a lot of activities are fully automated. But you need to build that out. And the earlier you build that out, the better for your business because you'll feel that compound effect. Then option three is to hire typically an agency. So if I have a problem like and I can't
Yeah.
automate it, I'm looking for an agency because the problem with the labor market today is that it's very hard to find very competent people for
Mm.
particular jobs. And then you have to train them, you have to look after them, and then you have to fire them eventually. Like there's a lot of hassle with people generally. Why wouldn't you just hire an agency that knows what they're doing, plug them into your workflow, right, and see value very fast? And if for some reason it feels like too expensive or whatever the problem is, you can try and take it in-house later on. But like I would never look at sort of hiring people into different jobs because it just you don't see like with everything that's happening in the world, you do feel like as a founder struggle to find the right people. And so the last resort essentially becomes to hire the humans. So if
Mm.
I have a problem, so off-the-shelf solution, then build a custom solution on N8N in our case, then hire an agency. And the last thing that I have in my mind is to solve my problem is to hire a person into the business. So if you have this sort of mindset where what we call agent first and human second, then this sort of little framework, it allows you then to see significantly superior sort of efficiency levels in your business. Um, yeah, and it is possible today, and not something that was possible sort of 2 years ago,
No,
to be honest. So yeah.
I'm excited like about the agent. Like, do you think that's the biggest trend for 2026 when it comes to AI? Like the agent, like coming into 2026, like is that going to be the biggest factor that businesses are going to really focus more on agents versus just generative AI and using it to solve a problem? It's actually what does the hybrid model look like going forward? Do you know what I mean? Where you've got the humans, but you've also got these agents and how they're working together. I keep coming back to this orchestra, but like it does feel like to me that there is this new, it's almost like this new form of an orchestra. I feel like it won't be all humans. It'll be a mix of agents, humans, the conductor. It's really interesting, and I think it'll be really interesting to see what 2026 looks like comparison to where we are now, because it's not getting any slower. It's continuing to rapidly evolve. Two final questions for you. Forge. I love the term forge because it's like forge ahead, it's pioneering, it's trailblazing. Is that where the name came from in terms of like forge ahead? Like, is that where you were going with this? Or like how did you come to the word forge in your business name?
Good question. I think it's very difficult to come up with really good names for businesses these days. A lot of them are taken, right? So, what I've just generally thought to myself that there is no software that's known in the space as the Forge. And what we do is we forge pipeline or you have a forge ahead, and like the word forge is a quite a good word to use. And because we're in sales, we thought to name our company Salesforge initially. So and the first product is Salesforge. But really we're typically known as the Forge because we have these all other softwares and they're also called forges, so MailForge and InfraForge, whatever, there's a
Mm,
lot of different softwares
yeah.
there. But the only caveat with that naturally name was like, oh, it's very similar sounding to Salesforce, but actually it's a very different word. But I keep on cracking the same joke, which is like, hey, listen, if you are getting Salesforce today, you should be getting Salesforce. So you're building that sort of affinity between Salesforce and Salesforce because we're not a CRM, right? We're typically what we call an execution layer on top of a CRM.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I would say there were other names definitely that were that we had in our minds, but we knew that we needed to have a brand name that would resonate with salespeople. And I think that Salesforce, we've been told, is pretty strong brand name. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, we
It's a
definitely had this sort of spreadsheet of 50 names, but then as we started to narrow down, we understood that Salesforce is really the strongest
Yeah,
out of that.
I love
So
it. And do you know why? And my brand and communication, because my background's advertising communication, but you called something out, force versus forge. Force feels forceful, like
yeah,
it feels like push, push, push,
yeah,
hustle, hustle, hustle. Whereas forge is like we're forging ahead. We're always coming up with new
yeah.
solutions within an ecosystem. So something really nice about the word forge, it doesn't feel forceful. It feels like I said, it's pioneering, it's trailblazing. One last question for you. What do you do I guess because you are so energetic, you're in this space, you're in like software constantly on, constantly in tech and everything else. What do you do to switch off? How do you step away like and also as a founder because you can tell that you're super ambitious, you've got a lot of energy. Like what do you do to switch off?
Good question. So I'm not typically the guy that's known as to switch off. I literally work 7 days a week typically, and it's not just online to be honest. Every week, for example, I'm flying into a new city to meet customers. Funny enough, like in this quarter. So literally every week there's an event going on. There's something going on. I will fly in and meet customers, at least 50 customers sorry, potential customers or customers in a particular location. So this week I'm flying to Hamburg, for example, in
Yeah.
Germany. And so every week there's another location. But I would say this sort of um, idea of flying in, meeting customers is the way to switch off because essentially I'm trying to get out of my office, out of my location, and fly into a new city, meet different types of because customers in Germany versus Australia versus US are very different type of people. And for me, this is sort of you know
Culturally.
changing my environment. For me, it's more important about changing environment than
Yeah.
switching off because I never switch off. Like I'm a type of person, and I mean, I think you are as a founder, as a CEO, you are that type of person that you are always on. You have this always on mode. Even if when you're with the family, you're always thinking of, what, something's broken, maybe something's burning, etc. So it is hard, I would say. That's for me personally. I think my two co-founders they're on the tech front. They're much better on that front. They're able to actually switch off during the weekend at least for a bit. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's the kind of simple things that I do just to make sure that you're not burning out. So I listen to a lot of music, if I'm very honest. So I get into this rhythm of listening music quite a bit, whether that's during the work hours or or not. But music does help me a fair bit. Traveling, so that's another one, right? To changing your environment, super
Yeah.
important, I believe. Like, don't
Agree.
be stuck in the office Monday to Friday try and work from another place in the world with customers preferably, right? That they're around. If not, that's fine. Go into WeWork and work from there
Yeah.
because that will definitely help you. Um, and and yeah, I think these are the two main things I would say. It's important to keep your not to feel like you're stuck in your head, right? And you're always in this sort of hamster wheel, right? So you need to change environment, change what you do. So, for example, even the activities that you do. So, for example, today we are having a film shoot. We're shooting a movie clip as part of marketing, right? So even the activities that you do have to be different on a weekly basis. So every week something's going on. We're shooting
Novel.
a clip or or we're doing XYZ, or we're flying in into the city, or we're hosting an event. Like when these sort of things are happening, you feel like, work is fun, and you don't feel like, you're burning out. Because I always say, like, if you feel like you're burning out in your work, you maybe are in the wrong job, right? So, but do things that give you a dopamine hit all the time. So try and figure out what's the dopamine hit for you. So for me, it's speaking to people on a Zoom call. So that means I'm totally happy to do 20 plus meetings per day. I'm totally fine to do that because every meeting energizes me, and I want to do another one and another one and another one. And so think what energizes you, and whatever doesn't energize you,
Don't do it.
try and get sort of don't do it, or try and change that, because some things you have to still do it. But then I try to either delegate it to somebody else, um, but you have to deal with it, right? So that majority of the activities that you have in your environment gives you a dopamine hit, and you're then a lot more productive. You feel very happy with your job, you feel satisfied, you want to work in this company, blah blah blah. It's very important, that sort of mindset, that you sort of, I guess, not necessarily force yourself, but you engineer that environment that you want to be in, right? So, and for every person is different, right? Because we're all doing different jobs in the company.
Yeah,
But
no.
I think it's very important that you have this healthy mindset in the company. So yeah.
And I'm glad you called out that, to avoid burnout, because I think it's super important that, being self-aware, like it's so important. Frank, how do we find out more about Salesforge, and how do we find out more about you and all your wonderful insights that you have shared today?
Excellent. Yeah, I think the easiest way, if you are on LinkedIn, go to LinkedIn, and you can find me, Frank Sondors, the guy with the bacon emoji. The bacon stands for bringing home the bacon. It's the saying in the US, in sales,
I
and
love it.
certainly in
Yeah,
business.
yeah, it's
Let's
good.
bring home the bacon.
Yeah, very clever.
And that's me. Typically, I'm on there. Everything that I share about my business and how we do things, etc., is on there. You may meet me at some of the events, maybe in the world, whatever. Otherwise, we have a website called Salesforge.ai. That's the primary website where the agent also lives. So if you want to check it out, feel free to do so. And yeah, if you want to shoot me an email, you can shoot me an email as well. So do you have some
Amazing, Frank. You've
specific
been
questions?
what a great convo to end my day today. Thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed all your insights, all your practicality, and like just all your tips. And I've got lots of questions for you that I'll no doubt hit you up after this. So thank you. And I love, love, love that you are reshaping what it means, in this rapidly changing world, but what it means for end to end, when it comes to software, when it comes to, like the whole end to end system. Keep forging ahead is what I would say. Sorry, pardon the pun. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
So thank you.